everybody, and welcome to another edition of Best of Film Seizure. I'm Geoff Arbuckle, co-host of the Film Seizure podcast and the host of Monster Mondays coming at you here. So a couple of things to talk about here with this. Let's first talk about what you are going to hear. This goes way back in our history. Now we've, the last two that we released, one was like episode 40 and one was like episode 52 or whatever. Those are pretty early episodes. And if we're being fair, we've already seen how much we've evolved from that. But this one this week goes all the way back to episode number 17, and this is for Clive Barker's Nightbreed. So a couple of things here. Like I said, this is a very early episode. You got to go back to May 30th, 2018, where we were basically putting the finishing touches on one of our earliest full month theme months, or whatever you want to call them. And this is what we called Barker Bonanza, where we did a bunch of Clive Barker movies. And Nightbreed was the conclusion for a very specific reason, and that was because this one is very near and dear to my co-host Jason Oliver's heart. So, he goes really deep into Nightbreed in general. He loves this movie. He has as many of the different cuts of this movie as possible, and it's fun to kind of hear him talk a little bit about that. I wanted to bring this out now because if you watch The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs, you know that this is what he finished season 4 with, which was the director's cut of Nightbreed. So just kind of a happy coincidence that he ended the season on that, and we had already kind of suspected that this would be one of the selected best of. So we're going to get started on this very shortly, but before we do, I've got some news and some items to kind of follow up on. First and foremost, you can always follow Film Seizure at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can follow us on several different podcast platforms like SoundCloud, Audible, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Apple, and Google, all those places. So please do subscribe to us there. We also upload this stuff to YouTube. But we are on our summer vacation, but I'm excited to say that we will absolutely be back in September, where we will tackle the Godfather trilogy. So we're coming back swinging on that. So we're looking forward to getting back to work on those in advance. So also, every Monday, you can still listen to my solo show, Monster Mondays. This upcoming Monday is a pretty significant one when it comes to Doctor Who lore. I'm covering the fantastic Tom Baker era story, Genesis of the Daleks, where we get to see how those menacing pepper pots get created. So be sure to follow us so that you know when those things drop, and we will be leading in here now to Nightbreed, and very shortly you will get to hear us talk really in depth about this, and it's a fun episode. It's a pretty good conclusion to a pretty fun theme month that we had. And then next week we will be back with another Best of Film Seizure, so be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, sit back, relax, and enjoy a very deep cut of Film Seizure from the very early days when Jason and I were still probably a couple of a-holes with microphones that didn't know what we were doing. But we hope you enjoy, and we'll be seeing you soon with some new episodes come September.
Who's buried in Midian?
Ain't nothing but dead folk.
Somewhere, hidden from sight, closer than you might think, is a place that's not on any map. Midian.
Something's breeding there.
It looks a lot like hell, but they call it home.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Film Seizure. This is Geoff Arbuckle.
This is Jason Oliver.
And we're going to be wrapping up our Barker Bonanza.
Barker Bonanza! Boy, this has been fun.
This has been a good one.
Yeah.
And we're not quite done with Barker yet.
Nope.
But we'll that's for later to discuss. But
yeah, I think you'll all probably realize there's a glaring omission in our Barker Bonanza. So, but don't worry, we're going to do those.
We're going to get around to it. We're getting around to it. But we're saving it for a special occasion.
Exactly.
But to be honest with you, this is probably the special occasion for you.
Yes.
So this week we are talking about the 1990 written and directed by Clive Barker, Nightbreed.
Nightbreed. This is, oh boy, yeah, this one is my favorite.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about? Let's talk about Nightbreed. What is Nightbreed? What's it about? And just kind of give us the overview, and we'll dive in a little bit deeper.
Yeah. So I mean, man, there is so much to talk about with this movie. And it's pretty timely in the sense that there's a lot of new footage that's come to light in recent years and different cuts of the film, and we'll talk about all of that. But before we do, Nightbreed is at its heart a movie where the monsters are the good guys. It's humans versus monsters, and as Clive Barker says in the intro to the director's cut, traditionally in films and movies, the monsters they've been beat them up and burn them. You know, like they're the bad guys and they're mindlessly bad. They don't have any dimension to them. And this is a movie that kind of turns that on its head, and it's about the monsters with stories to tell and sympathetic beings that are just trying to survive in a world that wants to destroy them. So what we have is a story about a man who has always been sort of drawn to these stories that he's heard about this place called Midian where the monsters live, and his journey to join the tribes of the moon, as they call themselves, and kind of the prophecy of him kind of becoming their destructor and their savior. So we'll get into all of that, but I kind of want to just kind of start with kind of talking a little bit about when I first saw this movie. For me, you know, it's one of those movies I remember seeing for the very first time and just being totally struck by how different and cool and scary but exhilarating it was. We used to go to visit my family in Scranton, Pennsylvania. We'd either go at Thanksgiving time or we'd go at the summertime for usually like a week. And I would stay in the basement of my aunt's house. And in the basement, there was like a couch and a TV. And I would usually stay up really freaking late, and I'd watch the late night cable down there as one is wont to do. I also remember whenever we would stay at Thanksgiving time, Nickelodeon used to always have a marathon of Ren and Stimpy and Rocko's Modern Life for like the whole weekend of Thanksgiving. I used to watch the shit out of that. But this particular night, I was just watching, I don't know if it was on TNT or TBS or one of those, cable channels. And I think the same night they were airing the George A. Romero remake of Night of the Living Dead with Tony Todd the color remake. Right?
Yeah, the one, Tony Todd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'd seen that for the first time, and I really liked that. And that's one I think we should talk about at some point, maybe even pair it with the original. But I remember seeing that, and then, funny enough, they showed like a short film, and it was Night of the Living Bread. And it was just like this really goofy parody, black and white version of Night of the Living Dead, but all the zombies were flying pieces of toast. And then Nightbreed came on, and I was just totally blown away by this thing. It was in a time of my life when I was probably 12 or so when I saw this, and monster movies still scared me. Freddy Krueger scared me, Jason Voorhees scared me, Michael Myers terrified me, but this was a movie where the monsters were scary at first. But then you came to understand their plight and understand where they're coming from and see them from their point of view. And it was sort of a turning point for me in kind of how I viewed horror films, right? Plus the fact that it was just, I mean, man, the last act in this movie is just balls to the walls, monster battle warfare. Like it's just so exhilarating and fun. But yeah, so I've always kind of had this affinity for this movie, and it's one of those movies where when you talk to people about movies, which you're wont to do, especially someone like me and Geoff who grew up in or you know, spent our youthful working years in movie theaters and video stores, you know, you meet people in those places and you talk about movies. And when you talk to somebody who knows and loves Nightbreed, it's an instant kinship. It really is. We're like the clans of the moon, you know. It's like it's a brotherhood.
Well, it's kinship.
It's a kinship. Yeah. So you know, that I've always kind of really loved this movie, and then it's an amazing story, and we'll get to it in a little bit. But this movie has kind of found a new life in the last few years. There's almost been what you would call a movement, if you will, to get some of this extra new footage out and some of these new cuts of the film. And I want to tell that story, but I do want to kind of pass it over to Geoff and just kind of get his impressions of this. Because, I mean, Geoff saw this for the first time tonight. Yeah. And that was super cool to like share this with him.
Yeah, so I hadn't seen this before. I may have seen bits and pieces. I certainly recognize the cover, you know, with them all standing, you know, that it's
like the superhero pose almost. You see it like in the Avengers, you know?
Yeah, kind of. And, you know, it's like I certainly have recognized some of the characters, like the porcupine lady and the serial killer that's going around with the bag on his head. Now, some of that, I do admit, also comes from seeing covers of this comic. The comic series for Nightbreed.
Absolutely.
So I guess we can talk about that real quick.
Sure.
Clive Barker, kind of a man after my own heart, is a big fan of comic books. Particularly, he did very much like superhero books and stuff like that. And so, you know, a lot of his movies or a lot of his stories were at some point in time turned into a comic book series. There's I think even to this day, there's still a Hellraiser series.
I think you're right.
With Boom Studios, and they've done some Nightbreed comics. Rawhead Rex was brought in. And so, you know, he actually for a little while had his own imprint at Marvel, where he told stories. Unfortunately, it was during a kind of a bad time for Marvel and probably did not get the life it deserved. But so I mean, there are certain things that I recognize, maybe not directly from the movie, but from some of the comic books that came out later.
Yeah.
Now, I have to admit that, you know, this came out within a couple of years of another movie that I constantly get this movie confused with, and that's Stephen King's Sleepwalkers. For whatever reason, Nightbreed and Sleepwalkers, I always thought it's like, oh, one of them's about the cat people.
Well, it's like Warlock and Witchcraft, right? Or Witchboard. Was it Witchboard?
No, Witchcraft. Witchcraft's got them titties in it. No, so yeah, I mean, it's so.
Well, you've probably always heard horrendous things about Sleepwalkers.
That, and I remember the trailer, because that was another one of those, you know, I've talked about it before, where it's like E used to have the trailer show late at night before I went to bed, and Sleepwalkers was constantly on there because that was about that same time that show first started, that they were advertising stuff like that. So anyway, so this was the first time I saw it, and you know, it's an interesting movie. There are two different versions of the movie that are most commonly known. We watched the director's cut, and I'm really kind of glad we did.
Yep.
Even though I don't think it changed many questions that I have, it does. The version that we watched with the director's cut certainly had a much, much better ending.
Yeah.
And we watched the theatrical cuts ending, and I was utterly confused, and I knew what happened.
Yeah.
I knew what the end of the story was, and I knew what the point was, but I was confused. So, but no, I mean, Yeah, I mean, it was all right. Yeah, I liked it. I don't think I could. I don't think I liked it as much as Lord of Illusions or Candyman. If we look at the movies that we covered this month,
Sure.
But I certainly see where he was attempting to go with this and try to build this world.
Yeah. So Barker, I think he's even said this in print somewhere. This was kind of meant to be his Star Wars with monsters. Like, he wanted this to launch a franchise, and it had all sorts of studio interference. The studios didn't get what he was trying to do with monsters as the good guys. They were just thoroughly confused by the whole point that Barker was trying to make.
I think it's also sometimes dangerous to make a monster a good guy.
Yeah.
Especially when their god is Baphomet.
Baphomet, yeah.
Which is a very realistic pagan and occult symbol.
Sure.
That probably scared the studio.
That will spook him a little bit, yeah. But I mean, come on, it's in the script. I mean, it's based on his short novel Cabal. It's not like any of this was a secret, you know? So you could definitely get a sense of his frustration. It's like, look, I wrote this novel, I wrote this script, and now you're getting, queasy about the material. It's unfortunate that it did not get the legs that it probably should have or could have gotten when it was made.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like, we mentioned the comic book element. I had said that it kind of felt like a kind of almost like an X-Men type of universe that was being built, because there are these different creatures. They each have their own power or ability or whatever, and they're trying to keep to themselves because there are people who fear them and want to ultimately burn down their fucking homes.
Right.
But no, I think that because these weren't presented as, most of them were not presented doing heroic things. All you saw them was in their little monster city with all the fucked up shit that's going on around it. Well, they're probably scared the studio.
Yeah, they're kind of the monster version of the circus freaks.
Mm-hmm.
They're the sideshow, except they haven't been able to even assimilate enough to be out in the open in any capacity. They're so freakish. They're so scorned or so feared that they have to live underground.
One guy looks like a raw chicken.
Yeah. I mean, the monsters are great. I mean, there are probably 100 to 150 different monsters in this movie, and
the makeup effects in this movie are beautiful and amazing.
It is a truly just epic output. That I mean, it's kind of flabbergasting, and you really get a better sense of that in the director's cut too. Because let's talk about that for a second. There are 3 cuts of this movie. Now, since 1990 to about 2012 or so, there was only one cut. There was only one known cut. It was the theatrical cut. It was what Morgan Creek put out in the theaters, and that's what was on DVD. There was no Blu-ray. There was no nothing. The DVD that did exist was totally bare bones. The movie had pretty much been disowned by Clive Barker, but there's a lot of people who still really loved the movie because they understood and they connected with what Clive Barker was trying to make. So weirdly enough, what kind of happens is there's this intern. His name is Mark Miller. He works for Clive Barker at Seraphim, and he had kind of always heard about the studio interference and that there was this other cut. And he asked Clive Barker about it one day. He's like, "Where's the rest of the footage?" And Clive was like, "I have no idea. It's in the wind, the Tribes of the Moon." I think I called it Clans of the Moon earlier. I'm going to turn in my Nightbreed card. Who knows? It's out there in the world, but maybe, or it's destroyed. And Mark Miller kind of asked for permission to sort of maybe hunt this footage down. So Clive was like, sure, yeah, by all means, if you can find it, that'd be great.
If you can find it, great. If not,
yeah. I mean, what do we have to lose?
What do we have to lose? Right.
So interestingly enough, they find the VHS work print of Nightbreed in a storage closet at Clive's house. It's unmarked tape. I mean, can you imagine?
I don't want to see anything on a Clive Barker unmarked tape.
Think about that. Yeah. Mark Miller's going there through boxes of unmarked tapes, putting it in a VCR, and every time you hit play, it has to be this moment of just exhilaration and terror, right?
Yeah. It's like, at what point am I going to see somebody's nipple pierced by a hook?
By a hook, or God, who knows? Like, who the fuck knows what you're going to see? I want, man, that's what I would ask Mark Miller if I had ever had a drink with him. So what was on the other unmarked tapes?
Yeah.
So he finds the work print. Actually, he finds, I think, various VHS tapes of footage that was shot and thought to be lost. And Clive sees it and it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is really ratty VHS quality footage of most of the dailies and takes, and it's all there. So a friend of Seraphim, friend of Clive's, Russell Charrington, who I'm not totally sure his relationship with Clive and Seraphim, but he is. They send the footage to him. He's like, I want to see it. He's a big fan of Nightbreed. He's like, I want to see it. Send it to me. So they send it to him. He watches it. He loves it, and he decides, as a gift to Clive and to the world, he's going to create the ultimate cut of Nightbreed using the DVD footage and the VHS footage with the shooting script, and create what he feels is the closest he can get to Clive's original vision with the materials at hand. So he makes it, and he calls it the Cabal cut. So the Cabal cut creates quite a stir in the horror film community, and they decide to premiere it. They decide to show it at festivals. I think, funny enough, it premiered at Horror Hound here in Indianapolis several years ago. Not a year that we went, but man, that would have been cool to see.
Yeah.
So then,
I was about to tell a story that we didn't need to tell. So go ahead. Yeah.
So what happens is the fans see this thing and they're like, what? This is amazing. I mean, it's like, uncovering gold. You've struck it. You all of these stories you'd heard about what the story was supposed to be is now kind of coming to light. So everybody's kind of demanding that this be released on video. We want this. The consumers, the fans want a piece of this. They want to own it. And there's a panel, and Ann Bobby, her Lori, in the film, she Boone's girlfriend, she kind of declares, she gets really excited because I think she saw it for the first time too. She gets really, really excited, and she kind of dubs the Occupy Midian movement. She's like, we need to occupy Midian so that we can get this released on Blu-ray. So what happens is a couple guys create a Facebook page and a website, Occupy Midian, that's sort of a center point, a rallying point for all of the fans of this movie to kind of come together and demand, to see, a release of this film, this Cabal cut. So what happens instead is, instead of getting the Cabal cut, Mark Miller keeps up his search. And he's getting tips from Clive. Clive essentially gives him his black book, which you imagine all the names that are in that.
Oh my God. There's probably drawings of nipples getting hooks through them.
So call this nipple right here, and that nipple might have the phone number for this nipple.
And they're all going to have hooks in them.
And there's really interesting stories here. I won't get into all of them because I want to be as brief as I can with this, because there's a lot to talk about. But he eventually... They are calling storage, like film storage facilities, and he calls one, and they get back to him. He's like, yeah, we got something labeled Nightbreed. And he's like, oh, you do? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to go pick it up. At this point, they're not really clear who owns it, because it could be Morgan Creek, it could be Clive. It's not really clear. It's probably Morgan Creek who owns this found film. But what it is it's not reels. it's basically clippings of the film. It's all it's all stuff that was cut out. I mean, it's
the cutting room floor stuff.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, and it's boxes of it, like 5 or 6, I think, small boxes of just cut scenes from the film. So they get this, and they're like, "Well, this is amazing. We've got all of these, this film, but they don't have any sound." So they're thinking, well, we want to cut something together. So what they do is they hire some audio genius to take the sound from the VHS tapes, and they sync them with the newfound film negatives, and they rescan everything. They cut it in with what they have, from the original theatrical cut, and they master this beautiful director's cut with mixed audio, where there are moments where you can kind of tell, but it's pretty phenomenal what they did. And this is Clive's vision. This was what they had. This was the closest they could get to what Clive originally wanted, and it's you could kind of tell from hearing him speak about it that he gets pretty nostalgic, or not nostalgic. He gets pretty just emotional about the fact that he feels like he's finally kind of can close the book on this one. He's achieved what he wanted to achieve artistically with this film. So, but what's funny about this? All right, so here's me, that I'd never heard of the Cabal cut. I hear about the Cabal cut. I get real excited about the Cabal cut. And then I hear that Scream Factory is going to release the director's cut, Blu-ray director's cut, collector's edition, this beautiful package with both theatrical and the Blu-ray director's cut. It's very limited. This thing sells really, the collector's edition portion of this sells very, very fast. Fans from all over the world are pissed off because it's in region 1 and they can't get, you can't get it shipped. I mean, there were a lot of hurt feelings from across the pond because they couldn't get a copy of this in the region that they have over there. But regardless of the fact, people are super excited. They get it, and there are mixed feelings. You watch it, especially people who have watched the Cabal cut are like, wait, where's this other stuff? Where's the stuff that I saw in the Cabal cut? Well, the fact is, Clive shot a lot of stuff. Not all of that stuff was meant to be story elements. Not all of that stuff was meant to be used in any meaningful way. Like I told Geoff, the title card in this movie, it's really cool. It's like the Nightbreed in block letters that come from from right to left across the screen, and there's all of this video footage of monsters behind it.
Yeah, they're having like some sort of weird orgy thing going on.
Yeah, and there were hours and hours of just weird monster shit that was filmed that existed out there, but was never meant to be a part of the narrative story. It was just shot for that purpose, for that title card, right? So I think that's fun. But people are like, well, where's the sex scene with Peliquin and Shunasasi, and where's this and where's that, and why did they cut out "Go Get 'Em Boys" from the theatrical cut when Boone releases the Berserkers? So there's these complaints from some people, like they wanted this totally comprehensive version that had every single shot that was filmed somehow jammed into a 3-hour movie. It's like nobody wants to watch that.
Nobody. Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to watch that.
So what I did, it was really, I had to make a decision because Geoff had never seen this movie before. And I was like, there are 3 cuts of this movie. So I have the Cabal cut as well. That's an interesting story in and of itself. That was never going to get released, but the fans again kind of demanded it. And Seraphim was able to make a deal with Morgan Creek to only release a very, very limited amount of these. There was originally only 150 copies of the Cabal cut that were sold.
Wow.
I got one. And I was super excited. And I'm still very excited. And then they realized, well, they had to basically order 1,000 because that was the lowest number that you could get printed on Blu-ray, basically. So they had like 850 copies that they weren't allowed to sell, but that they had. So they finally kind of like pulled some teeth over at Morgan Creek. It's like, look, come on, let's sell the rest of these. People are like begging for it. So Morgan Creek allowed them to sell the rest. So there are like 1,000 of these copies that have been sold, and they sold out like fast. And that was a whole nother like point of consternation between like the whole Occupy Midian fan base was just, oh, the people who didn't get them were beside themselves. And still to this day, when one goes on eBay, it's like freaking crucifixion for that poor soul who tries to sell their copy on eBay and like jack up the price, right? Oh man, it's funny. But anyway, so I decided, all right, I'm going to watch this movie with Geoff. He's seeing it for the first time. Which version am I going to show him? So I decided to watch the theatrical cut, the director's cut, and the Cabal cut for the first time. All a couple days ago. And that was going to decide based on that which version I was going to show Geoff. And far and away, it wasn't even a difficult decision. I thought it would be, but it's not. It's the director's cut. It is clearly the definitive version of this movie. The Cabal cut has its charms. It's definitely essential for the super fan like me, but no fucking way is it the best version of this movie. We can talk about why later, but I decided, yes, definitely the director's cut. And then I started thinking about that some more. And if you've read the Nightbreed comic that came out around the same time as the movie was released, I think it was on Dynamite, was the publisher.
Oh, at the time when the DVD came out?
Whenever they released the original comic.
Oh, that was Marvel.
Oh, I think it says Dynamite on it. Was that a division of Marvel?
No, that might have been later. Either Boom or Dynamite got the rights to release them, and they may have released classic versions of the
Boom definitely did the one that came out a few years ago, but
no, the series that you always have me go to conventions and look for issues, that's Marvel.
Okay,
that was part of the original. That was all that, like right at 90, 91. Mm-hmm. That was when Clive had his imprint at Marvel.
Yeah, well. Well, I read that, I have most of those issues, and if you read the first 3 or 4 issues, it's the movie, and then it kind of goes.
That's a classic Marvel.
And then it kind of goes along and continues the story, which is pretty fun to read. But if you read it, it's the director's cut. Like the ending in the comic is the ending that's in the director's cut. It's none of the bullshit from the theatrical.
Clive Barker's
right.
plan.
So it's almost like it's the storyboards. They're there. They were there all along, which is kind of neat to see that vision now finally on the screen. So that was kind of my plan. I was like, all right, I got to show Geoff the director's cut, and then I felt like, I have to because it's the ending that I grew up with. Show him the theatrical ending, and that's kind of a funny thing too, because at first I sort of mourned the theatrical ending, the whole thing with. We're not even really. They have no reference really for this, but there's a resurrection of the main villain of the movie, and that always kind of shook me as a kid when I watched that. But in hindsight, it makes no fucking sense.
No, I didn't get it.
Yeah,
I did not get it.
So I think what we should do. I've got a lot of that like. The different cuts out of the way. I think we should talk about the movie itself.
Yeah.
Let's frame it within the context of the other Barkers we've watched, the themes that are presented, and maybe it's best, Geoff, for you to kind of take us through the movie, and I can kind of come in with the anecdotal
you might
information.
You might have to help me a little bit in some pieces, because I can pretty much tell you what happens in the second and third act.
Yeah.
The first act is where I have my biggest confusion. And so let me give you the high level plot of this story. You have Aaron Boone, manager of the Yankees.
Yeah.
So that guy right now is a fucking monster. I know your secret, Aaron.
You know that Aaron Judge is Nightbreed.
Oh,
Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge, they're Nightbreed.
Just look at him. So anyway,
derail.
Derail. Aaron Boone has dreams. He has nightmares. The movie opens up basically after you see all this crazy monster stuff happening.
Yeah.
He wakes up and he's like, shaken, obviously, and so Lori, his girlfriend. Is kind of talking to him about, it's like, hey, let's go on vacation. It's like, let's leave this shit behind.
Let's get out of town.
Let's get out of town. And he's kind of wishy-washy about it. He gets a message from a Dr. Deckard.
Yeah, he mentions that to Laurie that Decker's been calling him, and he hasn't returned his calls. To which Laurie sort of gets a little concerned because now we get the sense, all right, Decker is a psychiatrist.
Played by David Cronenberg.
Yeah, David Cronenberg.
Yeah, I mean, he's a creepy dude.
That's an interesting point, too, because when I saw this movie for the first time, I didn't know fucking clue who David Cronenberg was. And then when I started watching David Cronenberg movies and knew what David Cronenberg looked like, this movie sort of had a whole new life for me.
Yeah.
In that sense, too.
Yeah. And so...
but he is Aaron Boone's psychiatrist. His name is Decker.
And so... we do see intercut at some point here in the first opening 15 minutes or so. A family has gotten slaughtered by this guy with a really creepy mask with button eyes and a zipper mouth that's kind of crooked.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty iconic look.
It is, actually.
We've seen that mask.
Most definitely.
At Horror Hound.
Oh, for sure.
And so it's cool. I mean, it's
It's
cool
probably,
look.
In some ways, it's the most iconic image of this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the guy is always carrying big knives, and that's the image that I've seen on a cover of a comic book of him with a big giant knife.
There's one of the comic covers of that. Yep.
And so and so now this is where I'm a little bit confused because so Decker tells Aaron Boone.
We'll call him
Boone.
He's referred to mostly as Boone. Yep.
He tells Boone, "Hey, there's been these murders, and the cops have asked me if there's anybody that I know of who could perpetrate these crimes."
Right.
And he basically makes it seem like that he has given Boone up.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, dick move, psychiatrist. I don't know how you do shit in Canada.
Right.
But doctor-patient confidentiality.
Well, you made a comment later that the doctors at the hospital are like, don't take me to a Canadian.
Oh, they all suck.
Don't take me to a Canadian hospital.
USA. I will gladly pay my insurance.
It's that damn universal health care. Yeah. Yeah. All the doctors suck in Calgary.
They all suck. But anyway, so this is where I'm a little bit confused because at what point is it revealed that Boone has a connection to this underworld group of monsters?
So he talks about that when he goes to see him. So basically, Laurie knows that Boone has had these issues with bad dreams and some sort of psychosis, and that Decker has sort of helped him talk through these issues. And he's in a really good place now, and he's in a stable relationship and has a stable job. Seems like he's really gotten a lot better. And
he also did you just say that he had like hallucinations and stuff?
And hallucinations, yeah.
Gotcha.
So he has this bad dream. He talks to Laurie about it. He mentions Decker, and she says that he should probably go talk to him. He call him back, find out what he wants. And then Boone makes the comment, it's like, the bad dreams aren't even that bad anymore. I've kind of started to like them, right? Which really kind of, I think, grounds him again. It gives you a sense that, okay, either, it could go either way, right? Either he's become stable enough to realize that they're just dreams and they're not that big a deal and they can be playful, or also that he's embraced the darkness in some way, right? But he does. Decker calls back again because he's been calling all week. He answers the phone. He agrees to meet him. So then he goes to Decker's office and he has a conversation with him. And that's when Decker tells him, it's like, you created this fantasy world of Midian and monsters and everything. And basically Boone's like, yeah, it was all, I just made it all up. I needed some place in my mind where I would be forgiven for my sins, where everything was okay and I didn't feel any pain, right? But in reality, Boone had been hearing about Midian, either through his dreams, which turned out to be prophetic, or from other people. He even mentioned that when he talks to Decker. He's like, it's just people talk about it. None of it's true. But you get the sense that, weirdly, of all places in Calgary, Canada, that people know. They talk about this place called Midian like it's an urban legend, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so So Decker then says, okay, well, I've got something for you, and produces a medicine bottle.
First. He essentially tells him that, the police have come to him.
Right.
And that there's these killings that are happening, and he shows him photographs of the killings,
like of the crime scenes.
And he tells him these are the exact same things you were describing to me in your dreams, right? And he's like, do you want me to play you the video or the audio recordings? Like, no. So Boone is starting to believe that maybe he was the perpetrator of these terrible murders, and he just can't remember them. They weren't dreams; they were him in some sort of fugue state. Right.
Yeah. And so that's when Decker says, okay, well, I've got something here that will help you with this.
Right.
Produces this bottle of pills, which I think actually causes hallucinations.
Right.
And makes him basically scared of the real world.
Yeah. Decker is playing games.
Right. And so Boone ends up going out to where he believes Midian is, which is a graveyard. And the cops show up. Now, this is one of my favorite moments in this whole fucking movie. So the cops show up.
Oh, you were skipping too much here.
Well, God damn it.
Sorry. You're skipping too much because he goes to the hospital first.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
And he meets somebody. He meets somebody in the hospital who's raving on and on about a place called Midian.
Right. And Boone's like, wait, did you just say Midian? And the guy at first was like, I'm not going to tell the likes of you, you scuzzbag.
Right.
You're not accepted. And
I don't know this actor's name, but he plays this character in the movie called Narcisse, and he is fantastic. Like he goes from different sort of tones very quickly and seamlessly in this scene. And it's a really playful scene between him and Boone where he doesn't trust Boone, but then he's convinced that Boone can lead him to Midian.
And actually ends up becoming, almost seems like he believes that Boone is some sort of savior.
Right. That Boone is going to lead him to Midian. Right. And he thinks that he's being tested. And this, I feel, is the first truly Barker moment in this movie.
Yeah. Because he's like, oh, well, you're testing me, so let me show you who I really am.
Right.
And starts slicing his skin off of his skull.
with these thumb hooks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course they're hooks.
Yeah. Of course they're hooks.
Of course.
I'm surprised he didn't rip his nipples off too.
Well, no, that guy comes later.
Yeah, it does.
That guy gets his nipples ripped later. And
he holds his scalp out to Boone like, as like an offering. It's awesome.
It is a cool shot. So now Boone is like, okay, well, he learned from this guy that, you go over the river and through the woods.
to frickin'
right.
Yeah.
Hellscape. Right. And so Boone goes out to this graveyard.
Can we talk about the ripping of the scalp first, though?
By all means.
Because think about the scene towards the end of Lord of the Illusions, where they're doing the same thing.
They're cutting their hair off. They're scalping themselves.
This is a Barker thing. This is a way of like degrading yourself or tearing off your flesh as offering or sacrifice for something.
Yeah, some weird shit.
It is, but it's. I feel like that's you're gonna check off play Barker bingo.
Yeah,
and that's bingo. A square. Yeah,
hooks through nipples, weird sex shit, scalping yourself.
Bingo. Okay,
so now Boone is out at the cemetery, and the cops show up. And out comes a black gentleman.
Yes.
And I'm like, boy, I know that guy from someplace. But we'll get to that in a minute.
This is amazing.
Gosh, yeah. When I found this out,
do we know the actor's name?
I don't. Well, I saw it. It's Anyway.
Anyway.
So, out comes David Cronenberg, Decker.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, everybody. You're wasting your time trying to get him to give himself up. I know how to talk to him.
Yep.
Which is kind of weird because Cronenberg even does some flip-flopping here too, because he's like, you're wasting your time. but wait, let me talk to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he goes up to Boone and it's like, hey, come on, man, what's going on here? Why are you here? What's going on? And I think at that point, Boone admits that
Well, Boone at this point has gone to Midian, and he's encountered two of the monsters that live at Midian. He's encountered this guy with a moon face. That's what his character's name.
He looks like the McDonald's Mac Tonight guy.
Yes, that's exactly right. And this other guy with these sort of like tentacle dreadlocks. And that his name is Pelican. And there's a standoff scene where Moonface has Boone by a knife, and Pelican
and he's got him by a knife, basically just saying, you got to get out of here,
right? And Pelican wants to eat him. He says he's flesh, he's a natural, he's flesh for the beast. And this is a moment where Boone is like, no, I've killed people, and Pelican's like, no,
I can
smell innocence 50 yards away. Yeah, you haven't killed anyone. And basically tells him whoever told him that he's a killer is a liar.
He's a liar.
Yeah.
So and Pelican bites him.
Yeah, he bites him.
Starts to like throb.
Yeah,
it's like really kind of gross. So Boone comes out of the cemetery and the cops show up, and Decker comes up to him, and it's like, come on, man, what are you doing here? It's just give yourself up. And Boone's like, but I haven't killed anybody. You're lying to me, basically. To which the response that Decker has is great. He's like, he's got a gun? And so the cops blow Boone's ass away.
Yeah.
Our hero is now dead.
Boy, they weren't messing around.
That's what the
coroner's
assistant says. So Boone gets taken to...
Oh, they weren't taking any chances with this guy.
Yeah, they weren't taking any chances with this guy. So Boone gets taken to the morgue.
Yeah.
And they call Lori. Mm-hmm. And Lori, they ask Lori, it's like, so how do you know Boone? Decker's kind of, pressing her for some info.
Yeah. Lori's like, he couldn't have killed anyone.
He couldn't have killed anyone.
And Decker says the line, everyone has a secret face, right?
Right.
It's a really cool line because it's sort of
and it's
foreshadowing.
It's foreshadowing about Decker, too.
Yep.
So she doesn't really believe that he's been killed. But then there's a commotion in the morgue because Boone has come back to life. And he escapes. It's kind of a janky cut scene where
it is.
You see him kind of wake up, and then smash cut to a broken window.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's a little jarring.
And then there's sort of a weird director's cut scene where Lori sees a vision of Boone at the window, which I'm not really sure I dig on that too much.
No, that almost is like it's telegraphing to us what happened.
Yeah.
It's weird.
But it does sort of remind me a little bit of
Candyman,
right? Where what's her name? The Virginia Madsen's character, where she's in the insane asylum, Helen, and she's talking to her doctor.
Yeah.
And Candyman shows up, kills her doctor, and then she flies out, and then she jumps out the window. It's kind of similar to that. Yeah.
So now Boone is in the wind now, and Lori decides she's going to go try to find out what's going on because the coroner believes that somebody has stolen the body.
Yeah. Which is what you would guess.
Right. But I think Decker realizes it's something else. And now he's kind of got this detective guy with him.
And he also goes back to his tapes. Decker does. And he listens to some of the stories that Boone told about Midian, and that Midian is a place where you can't die and all this.
Right. So he realizes that he's a immortal creature of some sort.
And that really rankles Decker for some reason.
Oh, yeah. He throws that tape recorder across the room.
All right, so let me ask you something. You see, that scene is, I think, problematic because you see all these knives laid out on the table.
Yeah, it's like ding, 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 ding. Decker's the mass killer.
Right. I think that it really gives the whole game away.
I would have rather he listened to that in his office as opposed to his villain's lair.
Yeah,
with this weird waterfall.
And
thing
I thought about should we give that twist away as we talk about it? But I really don't feel like it's that big of a twist. You're gonna figure it out pretty quickly.
I tell you right now, guys, if you went to Wikipedia, you probably already know.
Yeah. So,
also, it's fucking David Cronenberg.
Right. Of course. Right.
I mean, he's not going to be the good guy in a movie.
It's a funny thing. We'll get to this, but in the theatrical cut, Cronenberg is resurrected.
Oh yeah.
In the director's cut, he's not. He's dead. He's dead.
Yeah.
And
Dead.
somebody did an interview with Cronenberg, and they mentioned Nightbreed and talked about the fact that the director's cut was now a thing and that the ending was different. And Cronenberg kind of sarcastically said, "Oh well, shoot, I guess I won't be in the sequel then."
Yeah,
pretty good. Yeah,
that's pretty good. So now Boone has gone back to Midian and learns more about the culture and all of that. And there's a pretty deep culture we can't really get into fully.
We can't.
But it's they worship Baphomet, which is had led them to Midian because as we see later that Laurie is shown the past where they were hunted down as creatures, as beasts, lots of guys in a lot of religious garb, killing these people
in just various torturous ways.
There is a Ku Klux Klan guy, kind of, but in black, as you would see oftentimes in old Catholic texts, and stuff like that. So anyway, he learns more, and basically he's now immersed in this, and Laurie has kind of gone out to find out what happened, and so she basically wants to find Midian.
Yep.
To which point, I believe at that point, kind of Decker follows.
Yes.
And is kind of hot on her trail, thinking she's going to lead me to the place that I want to be. Now, the reason why he wants to be there is because he sees himself as the ultimate Grim Reaper to this to the society.
He doesn't. He likes to be the bringer of death.
Right. He calls himself Death.
Yes, he calls himself Death, and he especially targets families because they breed and they create life, and then he wants an end to that. Right. And so the fact that there are these beings who cannot be killed or are difficult to kill or who have come back to life and have gone beyond death, to him, that is the ultimate offense.
Yeah. Right. And so as it turns out, the psychiatrist, spoilers, is kooky insane.
Yeah.
As they typically are in these types of movies.
Yeah, he's our button-faced killer.
Right.
And he uses Laurie to get to Boone, who did not have his body stolen, who resurrected, and who fled back to Midian.
Right. So really at this point, once Boone, so Boone shows up in this town near where Midian is, and long story short, Boone gets arrested.
Yeah,
gets set up and arrested.
So basically, here's another conundrum with this movie, and Boone, he had essentially Decker set a trap for Boone.
Right.
He threatens Laurie. He's gonna kill Laurie unless Boone intercedes. Lylesburg, who's played by the great Doug Bradley of Pinhead fame, warns him that he cannot go above ground. He puts all of the Nightbreed at risk. If he does, Boone defies him, goes up, saves Laurie, but Decker gets away, and Decker realizes at this point what he's really dealing with.
Right. So then he basically sets the trap. He knows where the Nightbreed are.
Right.
And also sets the trap to get Boone out of the picture.
Yeah.
By having a massacre happen at the hotel that Laurie is staying at.
Yeah.
And basically
Boone has kind of been banished at this point too. He's like, oh, you made your choice. You made the choice of the naturals, so you will go on your way.
Right.
Right.
And so Boone gets arrested, thrown in jail, and then we meet our police sheriff.
He's so amazing. Captain Eigerman.
Captain Eigerman, who is the most over-the-top,
he reminds me of
yokel that you've ever seen.
He kind of reminds me if you took, definitely if you took the dude from Avatar, like the that
that's
guy,
exactly what
like
I
the main villain from Avatar,
and
mixed him in with a little bit of like just redneck.
Jackie Gleason from Smokey and the Bandit.
Yes, it's perfect.
Because so again, long story short, you've got these yokels who think that this guy is just some mass murdering cannibal. How they figure he's a cannibal, My guess is that's just what they were pissed off about.
Yeah.
You know,
he had some blood in his mouth. But yeah, it's kind of just
it's kind of like saying I'm pissed at liberals this week because they don't want me to call African American people black.
But it was funny because Geoff, you said it. It's like the way Igerman says, "You fucking cannibal," almost like it's the third one that week that they put in jail.
We are getting overrun by these goddamn cannibals. So the doctor comes in, which is weird. This is a weird part because they bring in a doctor, to quote unquote prove that they've not beaten him up. Although they've beaten the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And the doctor says, I can't get a pulse. Which flips out this deputy. Like, he pulls a gun.
The Italian Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah.
And he's like, whoa, what?
He's like, points his gun at him as he backs out of the cell.
Right. And so he tells Igerman that, they don't have a pulse. Holy shit. And so this guy's like, all right. Let's just go torch this fucking place down because Decker's like, I know where these guys are at. I know where you can find them. They're freaks. They're monsters. Let's go get them. He sends some people out, and
it's our the African American cop.
Right, the black cop in this movie is played by the same guy who's Captain Panaka in Star Wars Episode 1 of The Phantom Menace.
That's freaking amazing.
Who was probably actually one of the best characters in that movie.
Yeah.
And here he is. He was relegated to a background character in that movie, but here actually kind of plays an important part.
Yeah, he's sort of the voice of reason.
Right, because he gets sent out with a few of the yokels to go check out the cemetery.
Yeah.
And they find this one very kindly Nightbreed who has this little bulldog.
Yeah, a little French bulldog. Yeah.
Who gets drug out into the sun, and the sun affects some of the Nightbreed, and this guy is brutally killed by the sunlight. I mean,
he turns to dust and explodes.
Right.
Yeah.
And he tries to reach out for the help of Captain Panaka.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call him that.
Yeah, just do it.
He's the Royal Naboo Captain Panaka.
Yeah.
And Panaka at first is kind of weirded out by him and backs up, but then realizes there's something more to what's going on here, and this is bad.
And he recognizes that the sun was the weapon.
Right.
Yeah.
And that these people are not natural beings. And so he seems almost sympathetic.
Yeah.
That, oh my God, we just murdered this person who didn't do anything.
Right.
And, but
then their squad car gets torched. And you realize that Narcisse, a character named Rachel,
and
Lori all are headed back to town to rescue Boone, which they do. And in the meantime, the
yokels have united.
Yeah, Igerman has basically formed a posse, a militia, which he's already got a militia. It's called the Sons of the Free. He's the sheriff of this little town, and he's also like the militia leader.
Oh my God!
And they have this huge arsenal of just all sorts of illegal weapons.
And like this guy in the armory is like getting off on the
he's like
weapons.
licking his garrote. I mean, it's really weird and awesome.
But it's all played for comedic value because the humans in this are cartoonish.
Yeah. The humans are mindless villains. They're what the monsters are usually portrayed as.
Right. And so they go, and for basically the last 40 minutes of this movie is fucking war between the monsters and the humans.
Yep.
All of Midian gets fucking blown up. Now, some of the Nightbreed escape. Some stay behind to, they get kind of caught. I mean, they're not really staying behind on purpose, but they don't know how to fight. They've never had to fight. They've been in hiding for most of their existence.
Who knows how long, yeah.
Right. And so,
So Boone is trying to lead them in battle and empower them and give them weapons.
But they don't know what to do.
So some are just getting slaughtered. Others are fighting.
And he comes up with the great idea of, well, we've got these monsters that are uncontrollable in the bowels
called the Berserkers.
Berserkers. Well, let's just let them out.
Yeah.
See what they can do against these, and they tear the shit out of the place.
Yeah, and my connection here to this, I don't know that it's a direct connection, but I always kind of, I shouldn't say that because I hadn't seen Rawhead Rex in a long, long time. But after seeing Rawhead Rex and talking about with Geoff, I was like, holy shit, that's a berserker. I really do believe that there's some sort of connection there in the Barker verse, if you will.
I think you can very easily retcon one to fit the other.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So basically, the whole place gets destroyed. Boone is now looked at as kind of this both savior and apocalyptic character.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, this fits most religions that exist to this day. That they're all basically self-cannibalizing myths. There's a beginning and there's an end to all of these, and Boone represents the end. The Christian faith takes Ragnarok as their revelations, basically, because the Christian faith just kind of borrowed from whatever they could to get people to convert.
Yep.
And so they borrowed Ragnarok and turned it into Revelations. And it's that same idea. It's, whatever text you read or whatever faith you follow, there is a beginning and there's an end, and it's apocalyptic. There is a definite beginning and a definite end, and that's what's kind of seen here. But much like the Ragnarok kind of idea, there's a rebirth too.
Yes.
The idea is that
that's exactly right.
Not only is Boone kind of bringing about the destruction of Midian and everything that they lived for, but he's leading them to something better and new.
And he's literally reborn in this movie. He has been reborn as Nightbreed because of Pelican's bite, which is revealed as a prophecy of a cave painting that Pelican shows Laurie.
And he didn't want to believe it, but he did it anyway.
And
but it just kind of shows that you're kind of trapped in your fate.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then not only is he reborn, but he's renamed. Baphomet renames Boone Cabal. It's like, you are no longer Boone, you are Cabal. You are now my protector.
Rebuild what you destroyed.
Rebuild what you destroyed. Protect me from my enemies. Right.
Find me and protect
me from my enemies.
So he doesn't just walking around with a big giant statue of Baphomet. He has to now seek out Baphomet and lead the Nightbreed to
right. And the Nightbreed, there's a sense that yes, some of them are in a barn at the end together, but there's more of a sense that they have spread. There's been a diaspora, right? And they're now spread all out because they've all just panicked and ran, and that Boone has got to find everyone and bring them together, and lead an exodus. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, Laurie in the end stabs herself with one of the David Cronenberg's knives to kill herself so that she can become a Nightbreed
because
as well.
she wants to be with Boone, and she understands that Boone is, for all intents and purposes, immortal.
And really kind of dead to the real world. Yeah. Or to the normal world.
And she would rather be with him than live without him. So she stabs herself.
To which I think, oh my God, that's a terrible.
She's like, that hurt way more than I thought it would.
This was a terrible idea. But if she died, she was okay with that, So it's kind of a sweet little ending.
Yeah. So Boone bites her, and she comes back.
Hopes that it's going to,
and she does, and she becomes Nightbreed, and this is a totally different ending.
Oh my God, yeah. So
this was not in the theatrical cut at all.
So that's the movie as a whole. The idea is that now Boone and Laurie are going to go out and try to find Baphomet, and then come back, gather all the Nightbreed, and lead them to. It's also seen on a cave painting.
Yes.
That is the end of the director's cut, essentially. Right. But the ending of the theatrical cut doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So the ending of the theatrical cut has none of that with Laurie. Narcisse, the guy who tears his scalp off and becomes Nightbreed, he actually survives. He dies in the director's cut.
Yeah, in the director's cut, he's actually decapitated by Cronenberg.
By Cronenberg Decker. But in the theatrical cut, he survives, and you get really kind of a sense that maybe they're all together at the end, but then for some reason Boone has to go off on his own. It's kind of weird.
It's very
confusing, and there's no real resolution with Laurie at all. And
she's just there.
And then Father Ashbury
So Father Ashbury is a drunk in what's the name of the town?
Sheerneck.
Father Ashbury is just kind of the local drunk, and he's
a priest,
right? And he's a priest, but he's been thrown in jail next door to Boone. When the yokels rise up,
yeah,
they recruit Ashbury.
Yeah, Eigerman specifically says we're going to have God on our side.
Yeah, so
and
Ashbury,
brings Ashbury.
You sober? Come on.
Yeah.
Let's go. And you're just going to read Bible passages, which do mention Midian.
Midian, right.
Yeah. So the...
So what's interesting is Ashbury gets to Midian and he sees the fight that's happening around him, and he realizes that there's children there, and he kind of doesn't get comfortable with what's about to happen, and he has an encounter with Boone, and he wants to join the Nightbreed. He feels like this is probably something that he's been searching for. He even renounces his priest collar to join.
Right. So this is another Rawhead Rex.
Yeah.
What was the other one that? Wasn't there another?
Like a renouncing of your faith.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a Barker theme in general.
Yeah.
But, I mean, certainly Rawhead Rex, we saw it. With,
most definitely.
Yeah. So basically, he's like, show me what you've seen, because I need this now. Mm-hmm. And so Boone takes him to Baphomet.
Well, he kind of follows them,
right,
too, yeah.
I mean, Boone is not saying, no, get the fuck out of here.
Right.
He just like, whatever, dude, you can follow if you want, is the kind of look he gives.
Yeah.
It's kind of the look that that Boone has most of the movies, like, whatever, dude.
Whatever, dude.
Follow. Go ahead. At your own peril. So, Ashbury kind of gets down there. And like a dumbass, reaches for what he thinks is holy water, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of this bowl of bubbling, acidic-looking water.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, what's this? And he pulls it and he fucking splashes it all over his face and gets burned. And at the end of the movie, he's like, they burned me, so I want to burn them. It's like, you motherfucker, you asshole. You fucking burned yourself. I'm angry about him now.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
Oh, he's a dick. He's a dick.
He's total.
But yeah, at the end of the theatrical cut, he uses that same liquid and puts it inside of the dead Decker and resurrects him.
Basically makes Decker
Decker his god.
Right.
Yeah.
And essentially making him Nightbreed. Because it was the same thing that was used to heal.
Right.
It was Baphomet's approval of Boone.
Yes.
To heal his bullet.
If you were to become part of the Tribes of the Moon, you would survive that burn. Yeah. So
fuck that priest guy, man.
But in the
they burned me, so I'm gonna burn all of them.
But in the director's cut, however, Decker stays dead, but Father Ashbury still delivers those lines in a different way, but instead to Eigerman, and he kills Eigerman, and he sets himself up as the bad guy if there were to be a sequel. Yeah.
Yeah. That guy was a fucking whiny little ass.
Yes, he
was.
Fuck
that guy.
Yes.
Show me. I'm gonna burn myself. I'm gonna blame you. What a fucking. That's some fucking hypocrisy, man.
But
hypocrisy. I'm gonna call him Hypocrisy Man.
Yeah, it's not really.
It's more that cartoonish idea of the villains,
and it's definitely an idea of I see where the studio was coming from with wanting Decker, because Decker's the slasher killer. He's
cool looking.
He's cool looking.
And
I mean,
David Cronenberg.
if this thing is going to be a hit, we want more of that guy.
We can sell
that guy. Yeah. This burned priest cannot really carry a sequel.
He's got a weird head.
Yeah. And it's Cronenberg, right?
Yeah, Cronenberg.
So you can kind of get a sense of why they want that, but the way it's cut, the way the whole ending is cut, it's just bad in the theatrical.
Yeah, it is, because it's very confusing. I mean, it cuts out a solid feels like 10 minutes of stuff just to
easily
boom, 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 just get to the end. There's no real. I mean, you feel like in the director's cut there is actually an ending, like the whole story is told.
Yeah. And
now the sequel is priest bad guy, Cabal looking for Baphomet.
Yeah.
And a new Midian.
And you get the sense that that the priest will be hunting the Nightbreed, and Ashbury will be hunting the Nightbreed, and Boone will be trying to find them before they're hunted.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. So,
let me talk about one thing that I
Yeah.
really, really like about the Cabal cut,
okay,
and it's the is it Captain Panaka with a P?
Panaka, yeah,
Panaka. So his
Tanaka is the Japanese contact, and you only live twice.
yes, Tanaka.
Tiger Tanaka. Tiger Tanaka was his name. even in the Ian Fleming books. I know my James Bond.
His arc in the Cabal cut is much more interesting and much more realized. He you see him very early on after the killing of the family by the button-faced Cronenberg.
Yes.
He has a scene where he talks about the fact that he feels like he's failing these kids because there's been several of these killings. You also, in the director's cut and the theatrical, he gets killed right before the big battle with the Nightbreed and the humans by Decker. And then his whole thing is done. It's almost like, well, gotta cut that storyline out because we're short on time.
Can't sell a horror movie that's over 2 hours.
And I think
You still probably can't.
if it, I don't know this for certain, but I feel like Barker didn't want him to go out that way, but they didn't quite have the elements that they needed to complete his arc in the director's cut.
You kind of got the impression that by the time he gets to and he figures out what's going on at Midian, he's starting to realize that Decker is insane.
Yeah.
You kind of get there's subtext there.
Yeah.
This is not a very rich in subtext movie.
What's really
Which is unlike the other Barker movies that we covered this month.
That's very true. It's not. It's all very overt. It's all pretty much there on the surface.
Right, and it seems like there was subtext to Panaka, but they
what there
nixed it.
is with Panaka, if they were able to tell his whole story, and which they tell in the Cabal cut, albeit through a lot of really poor VHS footage, is he's kind of the redemption story. He discovers what's going on. He isn't really super comfortable with all of the killing of the Nightbreed. He sees all these crazy lunatics with Eigerman as they're slaughtering these monsters, and he actually has a moment where he starts to help them. He's carrying children, saving children. He survives.
It's that whole idea of I couldn't save the children that were being
right,
killed.
exactly.
Now I can save these.
It's really kind of beautiful.
Yeah, it's not, and my assumption is it's not meant to set him up as a hero, but just as this is my chance to solve the problems I was having.
Right, to come to some peace with this whole thing. Yes, it's exactly right. And
it could be a situation where even you could have played it as if you kept that, you could have still had him at the end basically saying, I'm letting you go this time.
Right.
I don't want to come and
Right.
I don't want anything to do with you, or I will have to do something against you.
Yeah. So it's
I just made up my own.
I like it. Yeah, that's it. Maybe you should write the comic.
Give me a job, Clive Barker. I want to.
But speaking of the comic, that's an interesting thing too, because there are two runs of comics. There was the original run that went
Marvel,
concurrent with the
Epic,
movie,
or
the Marvel,
whatever.
whatever it was, and Epic.
Epic was the I think Nightbreed might have been the first.
Yeah,
Clive
it was
Barker comics,
Epic
because it was Marvel with Epic, what used to be their more mature line.
Mm-hmm.
That was where like the Elektra run was that was kind of iconic for her. Yep. ElfQuest I think was there, and there were some other kind of fantasy type books that were a lot more mature. Then later, after I think that, Marvel's like, here's Clive Barker's whole own line.
Yeah.
And then he did a bunch of stuff. A bunch of stuff, meaning 4 or 5 titles that had Clive Barker's whatever.
Well, there was a specific run of Nightbreed that went way beyond the movie. At that time.
For about 22, 24 issues?
Yeah, it's about right. There were a few crossovers with Hellraiser as well. Mm-hmm. And then that ended, and then when the director's cut came out, and there was a lot of new buzz around Nightbreed. Boom Studios.
Yeah, because Boom resurrected the Hellraiser book and all sorts. I mean, that's where it's through Boom where, if you remember last week's episode, we talked about how the character from Lord of Illusions got tied into the Hellraiser universe, even became a Cenobite.
Harry D'Amour.
Yeah, even became a Cenobite.
Yep.
That's all in the Boom Hellraiser series.
Yeah. So they decided to launch a new Nightbreed book, which actually was a prequel. It was really kind of neat. It was it told the stories of a lot of the Breed characters that were sort of the fan favorites from the movie.
Porcupine Lady?
Yeah, like all of them.
Cool.
Peliquin. They all kind of had their stories leading up to, and how they kind of came together and found Midian. It was, but it also concurrently told the story of Ashbury hunting them as well. So it was kind of like a direct sequel and a prequel in flashback. It was neat.
It would have been kind of cool if we would have seen that various creatures of lore, like the Sasquatch or the Jersey Devil, were all in some way, shape, or form Nightbreed. And, basically in their travels to find Midian, they were captured, they were seen by regular. That would have been kind of cool. I'm writing this fan fiction, man.
Well, you know what?
I'm going to start a website.
There is a
Nightbreedfanfic.com.
I don't know how Nightbreed fans are, man.
I don't care.
They are.
I don't care. I'm going to make them do freaky sex shit.
They are very, very passionate about this property.
Freaky sex shit, man. Clive Barker will be into freaky sex shit.
Yeah, he would.
I mean,
well, there has been talk. There's been talk about a TV show. I forget his name, but there is actually somebody who's been developed. I think has tons of scripts written. That it's just a matter of funding and finding the right home for it. A Nightbreed TV show that would probably do just that.
I could see that, something like that living on AMC or something.
Yeah, I think it could be really cool. I think the problem is it's a tough property to sell, right?
Yeah. It was a failed movie.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do with a failed property?
Even the comic, I mean, there's only so many fans that are going to buy the comic. It didn't really get much of a footing with the Dawn fan because it's a lot kind of to jump into.
Right.
So you really have to start almost at zero level.
Retelling the story or having prequel type stuff
give enough to the enthusiasts, as Clive Barker would prefer the fans are referred to. Give enough to them so that they enjoy little extra nuggets, but tell a new story almost.
You know what you don't want?
What?
You don't want a Highlander series.
Oh,
where you completely and totally.
Some people really liked that.
Fuck them. I don't know why I'm so upset about that, but fuck them.
I don't think I ever watched one episode of that.
I didn't either. You know why?
Why?
Because fucking Duncan wasn't in it.
Right.
Or wait, Connor or Duncan? Which one? Duncan was the TV show, right?
Yes, Connor McLeod was.
Yeah, he was the movie
Christopher Lambert.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Right?
Connor McLeod.
Connor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Duncan was the fucking.
Duncan was the dude from the TV show he was in the fourth movie, right?
Yeah, I hated that.
Yeah. Fourth movie was better than the second and third movies, though.
Debatable.
We need to watch those.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I know it was my own idea. I texted that to you. Anyway, so I mean, what else you want to get into? Because here's the thing. Way back in episode number 1, you gave me some shit about.
I gave you some shit.
You gave me some shit about my knowledge of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah.
And my I don't want to say I'm an expert, but I academically study the pre-Crisis multiple universe of DC, the multiverse.
Well, here's the conundrum. I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going with this.
You are like into the. I basically told you when we started. It's like I'm giving you the driver's seat.
Yeah.
The fact that you let me even give the synopsis, I am kind of shocked.
Well,
in fact, you could have almost done this episode by yourself.
I didn't want to talk the whole time, and I wanted your perspective because
I know
because you've seen the movie for the first time. I think that it's interesting, and I feel like probably the casual listener of this maybe has not seen this movie before.
Sure.
So your perspective, I think, is important because here's the conundrum I'm in. There are people who love Nightbreed who are going to listen to this and be like, well, you didn't talk about this, and this. Right? I'm not going to make those people happy with this podcast because they know everything. They know as much and more than I do that we could talk about this for hours. We could talk about, exact chronological order into different cuts of the Cabal cut, and we could go on forever.
It's kind of like what I told you, where I have 1.6 days worth of Crisis on Infinite Earths podcast to listen to.
The other side of this is the person who has never seen Nightbreed or has seen it a couple times and liked it, where I want to give you guys just enough to get kind of like, whoa, that all this shit actually happened, and maybe you can go down your own road of discovery with this film.
Let me ask you this, and if you don't like this idea, I'll edit it out. What would you say about doing something on the website that furthers this discussion, that kind of gets more into as a sequel, if you will?
What would we talk about in the sequel?
Well, I mean, just some more of the in-depth, continue the academic look at Nightbreed as an idea, as a project, as a what came after.
What I think is interesting about Nightbreed, beyond the fact that it's just a fun movie that I love, is this. It's pretty freaking rare, first of all, that you have a situation where a movie gets this second life and this director's cut release
so many years
after the fact by way of this uncovering of previously lost footage. Like it's a story in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, in sort of a way, I think of the producer's cut of Halloween 6.
Yeah,
where it's a completely different movie. All the bits are there that you've seen before, but it's rearranged, reshuffled, stuff thrown in between. But anyway, I don't know. I mean, there's so much that you have, and I can't see how long we've already been talking about this, but there's so much that you already have with this that I challenge you to try to present more of it in some way, shape, or form, be it through a solo episode or a half episode. Or some sort of additional material that you could present to people that goes into further findings of what's kind of surrounding this. Because I think right now, we're kind of in this is kind of pulling back the veil a little bit here. We're in a little bit of a growth spurt here.
Yeah.
We've started doing weekly episodes. I'm working on the Monster Mondays thing that, again, I can't help. I mean, I'm going to talk about monster movies, and there are going to be people who know things about that I can't possibly fit into 10 or 15 minutes worth of material.
Yep.
But you have to kind of take what we can give you and what we can put out there and make fun with it.
I think that what I would love for people to do is discover this movie on their own. Watch the different versions. The Cabal cut is really hard to get a hold of now. I mean, there's only so many copies of this that are going to be produced. It's going to eventually go to gray market.
Yeah, hit your comic or hit your horror convention.
Yeah, it will be the only way to get a hold of this cut at a certain point.
Or send us $18 for shipping and handling.
And I don't want to necessarily condone that, but
no, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's going to be one of those things where you're going to really have to seek it out, find it,
But what I really think beyond the movie itself is interesting is the story of this new version. And I don't know how many people are familiar with a documentary that just recently came out called Dawson City Frozen in Time, but it's a movie about all of this silent film footage that was uncovered in Canada, in the old gold rush town, Dawson City, which was like the capital of the Canadian gold rush, this place. And it was a city that actually ended up, I think something like 70,000 or 100,000 people lived in this city at one point.
Wow.
During the gold rush.
That's
right?
a ton. That's a huge city.
Yeah, it was huge. And it's, obviously as the gold dried out, it dwindled and it became almost a ghost town, but it still exists today. But back in like the 70s, in the ground, they were digging a foundation for a new building, and they started uncovering all of this film.
That's like some fucking Blair Witch shit.
And yeah, and what they discovered was just all these old lost silent films, like stuff that had long since been destroyed because it was on the old celluloid,
Yeah.
right? So stuff that had burned up.
Burned or broke or faded.
What they found was that this gold rush town was at the end of the distribution line. There were so many people living up there that there was a distribution film line that went all the way up there, and then it just stopped. It just died there, and all these films were stored because the studios were like,
it takes too much to send it back.
Right. They actually told somebody to destroy them, but they're like, well, I'm not going to do that. We'll just store them, right? And then it was forgotten and it got buried. And then some 50, 60 years later, it's discovered and it's in pretty good shape. And they're going through all these reels and realize this is stuff that there's no copies of this anymore. This was a film that we have record of on paper, but nobody has a print of it. They found hundreds of films.
It's like, man, I bet there were people just wishing that, what was that? What's the?
I don't know. I'd help you out, but I don't know.
It's the old horror movie, the old Lon Chaney. That's been lost.
I don't know.
Is it London After Midnight or something like that? It's like one of the most famous films to never be found.
Right.
I mean, there's practically nothing remaining of it.
So yeah, it's like that. It's like that. It's like so. What we're given is this gift. Fans of this movie are given this gift of this found footage that has been able to restore Clive's original vision. And you imagine, like almost like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, or
looking at some of those unmarked VHS tapes would be like looking into the Ark of the Covenant.
Right. Yes. That too. But you imagine, like, all right, it was just some storage facility that said, yeah, we've got some film labeled Nightbreed. What the fuck else do they have?
Yeah.
What else do they have that's been forgotten to time? And I love that. I love the fact that we can still discover things that we thought were lost.
Yeah.
And restore that film and make sure it isn't lost to time, because it's part. I mean, something as simple and maybe as insignificant as the movie Nightbreed doesn't quite fit the level of the very first films ever made in the silent film era.
But you know what I want to do? I want to call somebody up and say, better fucking find those original versions of Star Wars before they're gone.
Right.
Most of the time.
But that's it. Yeah. That's just it. So I think it's just an amazing story of film preservation. Mm-hmm. This whole thing.
It's art. I mean, it's think of all the pieces of art that's been lost to fire or lost to. As artists often did, paint over, their canvases or wipe out what they had done before. I mean, I think Van Gogh, most of his paintings were. Yeah. I mean, he overdid it, and so there are lost masterpieces that.
Well, I read an article just the other day about when MySpace deleted all of their old profiles and blogs, like everything that had been produced in on their social media site before they rebranded everything. They just smoked all of it. It's gone. There's untold amounts of conversations and pieces of art and poetry and music and whatever that was shared,
and relationships,
that was shared on that site. That is just, it's gone. It will never be retrieved. It's almost like an entire history of the internet was cut out and destroyed.
Right. I mean, it's like people always like to go to the Wayback Machine and see old versions of websites, but sometimes things are not recoverable.
It's just not there.
They're not there.
Yep.
Those things are gone, and nobody saved a copy of it, and nobody has a copy of it. I mean, this is something kind of getting off topic here, but I wrote over 1,000 articles on a website, that isn't there anymore. And I mean, it might be there in the Wayback Machine, but I mean, I almost hate to find out that it isn't. You know?
Right. Yeah. Almost kind
because I've done some good stuff on there.
Yeah.
You know. But I mean, that's the word. I mean, yeah. I mean, you want things like this, good, bad, or indifferent. You want to make sure that not only the artist's intentions are represented, but that what was actually there is still there and survives and lives throughout history. And that's kind of, in some ways, why we kind of do live at a kind of a great time, because there that does exist. That the attempt to try to save that stuff still is there, you know. And for some people, some of their original ideas or original versions will not be retrieved until after they die, you know, and because somebody's going to stumble upon, oh, what's on this blank videotape? Well, my God, it's the fucking Ring. You know? Clive Barker just killed us all.
I'm surprised that wasn't one of the tapes in Clive Barker's closet.
Yeah, it's the fucking Ring.
It's like imagine the possibilities of what was in Prince's fucking vault in Paisley Park. I mean, I love that. I love that idea that there are things that have been preserved that we haven't seen, or things that have not been preserved that can be found.
Right.
The whole idea of the film restoration, like what Vinegar Syndrome is doing with like the golden age of erotica, is even fascinating. Like, like that may seem like trash and may seem like just. Well, it was garbage to some people, but it's.
You're talking about the stuff from like the 70s.
Yeah,
porno sheet.
Yeah, like the old John Holmes stuff, you know,
the stuff that played in actual
and,
fucking theater.
Right. I mean that is a piece of history, and love it or hate it,
it's part of our collective history.
It deserves to be preserved. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we kind of did this.
We did. We did it.
We kind of did. And I still offer you the challenge.
Yeah.
Of think about, you know, putting something together that talks a little bit more about this, or other movies that this. But I mean, you have a pool. I mean, I see your notes for this movie. I mean, you have the knowledge and you have the information.
I think an interesting thing to maybe discuss in the. In overtime or whatever that might be is definitely the different versions of the cuts and how they kind of play and the differences, the good and the bad with the Cabal cut, because there's a lot of people out there who feel like that's the best version of the movie, and I don't agree at all. There's more to the movie, but I think that there are good things about it that I do understand why, if you've seen it and then you don't have access to it again, that it's a little painful.
Sure, but that's an alternate version. That's an alternate reality of that movie. It'd be like finding out there are scenes that were cut out that can be restored into 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right.
Do we really need more to that movie?
Which didn't they find some?
I think
they found some footage.
But we don't need that.
No, we don't.
I mean, it's already mind blowing as it is. We don't need.
I want to see it, but I don't want to see it in the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I challenge you to that.
It's almost an interesting juxtaposition with something like Blade Runner as well, where
we have very different opinions of the different versions of Blade Runner.
That's a fun conversation. I think
we'll have that.
I think that's a conversation that parallels Nightbreed in some ways for fans of these different cuts.
Right.
But anyway,
although I know I'm on the minority.
I kind of have a hybrid approach to what I like about the different versions of Blade Runner, but
yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But I'm going to give this a rating.
Yes,
out of 5 unmarked Clive Barker VHSs. I'll give this movie. I'll give it 4. I mean, it's a solid movie. It's not my favorite of his. It's not even my favorite of this month, but it's a very solid movie. I think this is a movie that is almost hurt by the fact that it didn't have the opportunity to expand on these ideas in film. Now, granted, I could read those comics, and God knows I read comics. but that's not quite the same. In some ways, I'm sure some of that is retconning a little bit and tweaking things a little bit.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what we would have seen if this grew into a series of some sort. I don't think I need to ask you how many unmarked VHSs.
Well, I'm actually going to rate this on a scale of 5 torn nipple rings.
Oh my God, there are torn nipple rings in this.
And you know, as much as I would love to give it 5 torn nipple rings, that's kind of reserved for what I would feel is a perfect film. And
with a perfect ripped nipple.
With a perfectly ripped nipple where it just gets straight ripped out.
Ripped out. Not much mess, no fuss, no muss.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick and it's still gonna be almost at first
unpainful. Painless.
I'm gonna say 4.5 because there are I even mentioned them in this podcast and while I watch the movie there are scenes that I have problems with, some wonky parts that don't quite go right, and I would love to see changed. And I do believe that there are parts of the Cabal cut that are improvement on the director's cut. So
we talked about Panaka.
Him specifically. So 4.5 for me. I love this movie though. I'll talk to anybody about this for an additional 8 million hours. If you haven't seen it, watch it. If you want to watch it with me, tell me and we'll watch it. I've got all 3 cuts. And I might get some weirdos with unmarked VHS tapes,
and ripped nipples.
But if you're in Indianapolis specifically, and you don't have a copy of the Cabal cut, and you would like to watch the Cabal cut, let me know.
Well, let's talk about some things that we have on the horizon. Next week, we have our first ever requested or suggested movie, I should say. We'll talk a little bit more about that when on Facebook we get to that.
I'm really excited for this one.
It's fantastic.
It's a real treat.
Which is funny because we actually recorded that episode. In continuity terms, we've actually already recorded that episode.
Yes.
But we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, we've got Tumblr and Twitter. You can follow us there. We've got stuff that's being posted on the website all the time. I already kind of mentioned that I'm, got some monster business going on there that we're putting out there.
Yep. Mail us a self-addressed stamped manila envelope, and we will send back an unmarked VHS tape.
With some weird shit on it. One of the things we've kind of been hinting at all month, Hellraiser 1 and 2. Obviously, those are big Clive Barkers.
They're the centerpiece.
They're what people come for. We are going to talk about them, but we're saving them until October. We've got 5 episodes in October to fill. Just so happens that Mr. Barker's birthday is the very first week of October, so we're going to cover it then.
Happy birthday, Clive.
Happy birthday, Clive. I can't wait to see more nipple torture.
Yes, there'll be plenty of that.
There are plenty of sexual torture, and I'm kind of down for that. I'm ready to watch it. Please don't ask for any unmarked VHS tapes. Because probably a lot of it's going to be shit you do not want to see.
I could send them home videos from when I was like 8. It would be hilarious.
That would be fantastic. Actually, let's do an episode of that. So anyway, let's wrap things up. We're going to put the bow on Barker Bonanza.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope so. We've got plenty of more things to talk about. Plenty of more themes and stuff like that we'll get to. This was our first real big theme that was more than just a series of movies or loosely connected movies in some way, shape, or form. But until next week, when we will talk about The Rage, and we'll let you figure out what the fucking version of The Rage, because there's every movie in the mid-90s was called The Rage.
I like that. It's kind of like a Film Seizure scavenger hunt.
You figure out which The Rage from the late 90s we're going to talk about. And we will reveal that to you next week. But I am Geoff Arbuckle.
I'm Jason Oliver.
And thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.